everybody, and welcome to another episode of Healthy AF. My name is Amy Chang, and I'm a health coach here with Healthy Life, Health, and Wellness Coaching. January is all about communities and connection. Why? Because it helps us live better, feel fuller, and have that sense of belonging that moves us forward into sustainable habits. All right. So if you haven't listened to the podcast before, you can start on December 29. If you don't want to start on December 29, just pop right in. Today, we're talking about commonalities. We've been talking about connection and community and how that bolsters our sense of belonging. And when we have that belonging and some of those needs are met, then all of a sudden, healthy decisions come easier. So why would we talk about this in January? Because it plays in. We can talk about motivation. We can talk about willpower. We can talk about plans that help you get to the gym, like you said you were going to do that on January 1st. But at the end of the day, when you feel good, when you feel safe, when you belong in your community and belong to yourself, you make decisions that will pull you into better health. It's not a struggle anymore. You're not like grinding it out. You're not a victim to your workout. You're doing it because life is pretty dang good. Why would you not? We've talked about 4 different types of connection. First was the just connection of acknowledging another human being. The second is having commonalities in things that you don't choose, like you go to school, you go to work, maybe the church you go to. The third is a social connection that you do choose. It's a little bit more specialized than just a general, we're in school together. It's more like we go to CrossFit together, or we go to Mahjong together, or we go to the senior center together. And then the fourth type of connection I wanted to discuss is intentional, intimate relationships. Now, we're going to get to that in a couple of weeks. We talked about just acknowledging other human beings and being acknowledged last week. So this week, we're talking all about commonalities. Now, this type of connection is really what we're used to, right? It starts early on. Your first friends are the friends who live in the neighborhood with you, or they go to the same preschool. And it's so easy, right? This decade of my life, becoming an empty nester, moving across the state, becoming from a married person to a single person, has really opened up my eyes at how hard connectivity really can be when you don't have commonalities. You know, for me, I had friends that I grew up with, clearly, friends who I went to church with, friends who lived in my neighborhood. None of those things I chose, right? It wasn't specific. It wasn't because I was interested in it. It was because, you lived beside me. Then I had friends in my class, first grade class, second grade class. Your best friend in kindergarten, mine was Connie Stowe. She had a cousin named Nikki. They lived in the inner city in Winston-Salem. I lived in the suburb of Rural Hall, right? Country girl, city girl. And we were the best of friends. And I loved her so much. I can still remember her name. I can remember exactly what she looked like. It was good times. But after kindergarten, we weren't in the same class together. And where did that connectivity go? Well, it happens as we move when we have this type of relationship and community, the type that is just sort of like we have a general commonality. Those things are fluid. So you go on through middle school and high school and you have whatever friends you're going to have there, but primarily it's a function of we go to school together and it's automatic. You pick certain friends, of course, maybe you were the one neighbor you've known longer, or the one crowd that maybe drinks more than you want to drink, or studies harder than you want to study, or the athletic crowd, or whoever that is. You might pick a little bit, but basically we're looking at very common bonds of community, and they're just there in place. So we get up through what, 18, then we go to college. Same. Who lives in your dorm? Who's in your chemistry class? Right? Who's walking to that same building at 8 a.m. on Mondays and you see them every time? Okay, great. Then we might have a period of our lives where we're like, I don't know who to connect with. I'm out of college. I'm not in grad school. I might not be working my real job yet. I might not have a job yet. I might have moved to a different community. All of those things, we start losing those commonalities that bond us in community. Then we hit motherhood or parenthood if we choose to do that. Whole built-in community again. Everybody's dropping off at the same time. They're either, picking up at a bus stop or they're dropping off through the carpool, and you've got those built-in friends. Then you become an empty nester. God help you if you become an empty nester who is also divorced. Totally different story. You see how those commonalities are just they're built in. And those relationships matter. Those relationships matter. They're where we spend the most of our time. When you are school-aged, you spend 8 hours of your day with those people. Do you feel safe? Do you feel connected? You might not tell them every detail of your life. In fact, you might not share a lot of things, but you do have to interact with them. You don't have to like them, but there's a familiarity of who they are and what you can expect. I can tell you vividly what I could expect from certain people I rode the bus with for years. Never had a class with them, but I could tell you exactly which ones were going to tease me, which ones were going to ignore me, which ones would talk to me. I wouldn't call it an intimate relationship, but I would call it a sense of known belonging. I had a spot on that bus just like everybody else. Didn't mean I chose it, but I had that spot. So if you're in a period of your life where you've got a boatload of commonality communities and you still feel a little lonely, or you still feel like something might be missing, it's okay. There's lots of different types of relationships. And having this kind of familiar, known, common, unchosen community that you're a part of is just another part of your life. So as always, with each of these short snippets about community and connection, I'd encourage you to get down a piece of paper and look at where are your common connective communities, the places you work, the places you go to school, maybe your church group, the places you spend a lot of time there, but you don't necessarily feel a closeness, but you do feel a comfort just in the fact that you know what to expect. If you think about it, it's easy to forget what it feels like when you don't have that closeness, that knowing expectation of when I go here, this guy always comes in late, this lady is always pissed, and this woman usually sits down and talks to me. Think about the first time you went to any new place, the first time you walked into a yoga class, the first time you got on that specific bus, the first time you went to that specific church service. Those firsts, and how much energy and effort and courage it takes to walk into a completely unknown community and not know how you fit in and not know where the other people's pieces fit in. Can you imagine having to live in that amount of discomfort and excitement and unknownness all the time? It'd be exhausting. So get out your pen and paper, write down those communities. It'd be interesting to do it for over your lifetime and see how those communities that are for sure a connection for us, but are just very common bonded communities, how they've helped you and how maybe they could be limiting too. Next week, we are going to tackle social connections that are more specific, not as general. And the week after, we are going to dig right into my most favorite intentional, intimate relationships. I will see you next time on Healthy AF. Please feel free to reach out to me if you want to talk about this. Where is the importance of belonging and community in your health journey? Fun thing to look at. All right, you guys, I'll see you next week on Healthy AF. Take care.